The rain tapped softly against the wide glass windows of the penthouse as Adrian Whitmore stood near the dining table, staring at a stack of documents he had never imagined seeing in his own home. The paper trembled slightly in his hands, though he tried to steady them. Across from him, his wife sat with an icy calm that made the room feel colder than the rain outside. Vanessa Whitmore had always been elegant, always composed, but tonight there was something distant in her eyes, something final. "I've already signed my part," Vanessa said, sliding the pen toward him. "It's better this way." Adrian blinked slowly. His voice came out quieter than he expected. "Better for who?" "For both of us." Her tone was sharp, controlled, rehearsed. But Adrian wasn't looking at her anymore. His eyes drifted toward the hallway, where a faint glow from a nightlight painted the wall in soft amber. At the end of that hallway slept their 6-year-old son, Oliver, a boy with bright gray eyes, gentle laughter, and legs that had never learned to walk. Vanessa followed Adrian's gaze and sighed impatiently. "I want the penthouse, the accounts, the lake house in Aspen, and the company shares we discussed," she said, tapping the documents again. Adrian swallowed hard. "And Oliver." For a moment, silence filled the room like a weight pressing against the walls. Vanessa didn't hesitate. "I want everything," she said coldly, "except that disabled child." The words landed like shattered glass. Adrian felt something inside him collapse. The same woman who once held Oliver in a hospital room and whispered lullabies now spoke about him like he was furniture left behind. At that exact moment, someone cleared their throat softly from the doorway. Adrian's lawyer, Caleb Rowe, had arrived earlier and sat quietly reviewing the documents. A calm man with kind eyes and silver streaks in his dark hair. Caleb had seen hundreds of divorces in his career, but this one made his jaw tighten. He stood slowly and walked closer to Adrian, leaning in just enough that Vanessa wouldn't hear. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Adrian, don't sign anything yet." Adrian looked at him, confused. "Why?" Caleb's eyes flickered toward the hallway. "Because the moment you sign this, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." Adrian's chest tightened. Before he could respond, a small sound drifted down the hallway, a soft metallic click, the sound of wheels. Both men turned instinctively, and then Oliver appeared. The little boy slowly rolled his wheelchair into the room, wearing dinosaur pajamas and clutching a small stuffed fox. His sleepy eyes blinked under the warm light. "Daddy," he whispered. Adrian rushed toward him immediately, kneeling beside the wheelchair. "Hey, buddy, you should be asleep." Oliver rubbed his eyes and glanced nervously toward Vanessa. Mommy was shouting. Vanessa stiffened but said nothing. Oliver looked back at his father, his voice small and uncertain. "Did I do something bad?" The question sliced through Adrian's heart. He shook his head quickly, brushing Oliver's messy brown hair away from his forehead. "No, champ. You didn't do anything wrong." Oliver studied his father's face with surprising seriousness for a 6-year-old. "You look sad." Adrian forced a smile. "I'm okay." But Oliver wasn't convinced. Children often understood emotions adults tried to hide. Caleb watched the scene quietly, his expression heavy. Then Oliver noticed the papers on the table. "What are those?" Adrian hesitated. Before he could answer, Vanessa stood abruptly. "They're adult matters," she said. "Go back to your room." Oliver's hands tightened around the stuffed fox. "But, Oliver," her voice snapped like a whip. The boy flinched. Adrian stood up slowly, his eyes now filled with something Vanessa hadn't seen before. Not anger, not sadness, something deeper. Resolve. Oliver tugged gently on Adrian's sleeve. "Daddy, are you leaving?" The question made the room feel unbearably small. Adrian crouched again so their eyes met. No, he said softly. I'm not leaving you. Ever. Oliver studied him carefully. Then he nodded once, trusting him completely. As Adrian wheeled Oliver back toward the hallway, Caleb quietly gathered the divorce papers and slipped them into a folder. When Adrian returned to the living room, Vanessa crossed her arms impatiently. Well, she said, are you signing or not? Adrian stared at her for a long moment. The woman he had once loved now felt like a stranger standing in his home. Caleb stepped beside him and placed a hand on his shoulder. Adrian, he said calmly, loud enough for Vanessa to hear. You should know something important before making this decision. Vanessa rolled her eyes. This isn't a courtroom, mister. Roe, Caleb replied evenly. But the truth still matters. Adrian looked at him again. What truth? Caleb leaned closer, his voice quiet but firm. The documents she gave you, they're not just divorce papers. Adrian's heart skipped. What do you mean? Caleb exhaled slowly. They also transfer legal custody. Adrian frowned. Custody. Vanessa already said she doesn't want Oliver. Caleb nodded once. That's exactly the problem. Adrian felt a chill creep up his spine. What aren't you telling me? Caleb's eyes hardened. Then he whispered the words that would change everything. She's not walking away from Oliver. A heavy silence fell between them. Caleb's voice dropped even lower. She's planning to take him somewhere, where you'll never see him again. The color drained from Adrian's face. Vanessa's expression shifted instantly. Caleb, but it was already too late. Adrian's world had just cracked open, and for the first time that night, the divorce papers were the least terrifying thing on the table. If this moment made you feel something, please press like. It helps this story reach more people who believe every child deserves love. Adrian's hands slowly curled into fists. What did you just say? Caleb looked directly at him. I checked the legal clauses she inserted. Vanessa stepped forward sharply. You had no right. I had every right. Caleb interrupted calmly. Adrian's voice trembled. Vanessa, what is he talking about? Vanessa's eyes flickered with irritation. But before she could answer, from the hallway came Oliver's quiet voice again. Daddy. And Adrian suddenly realized something terrifying. This wasn't just a divorce anymore. This was a fight for his son. Before the truth unfolds further, tell me in the comments, if you were Adrian, what would you do in this moment? Adrian's pulse thundered in his ears as Oliver's small voice echoed from the hallway again. Daddy. For a moment, no one moved. Then Adrian walked toward the hallway, each step heavier than the last. Oliver had stopped near the doorway, his wheelchair slightly angled, as if he wasn't sure whether he should come back into the room or retreat to his bedroom. Adrian knelt beside him again. Hey, buddy. Oliver studied his father's face carefully. Even at 6 years old, he had learned how to read silence. Are you and Mommy fighting? Adrian hesitated, searching for the right words. Some truths were too heavy for a child's heart. Sometimes grown-ups disagree, he said gently. But none of this is because of you. Oliver looked down at the small stuffed fox in his hands. Mommy doesn't like when I come into the living room. The quiet honesty in his voice made Adrian's chest ache. Behind them, Vanessa scoffed softly. This conversation is getting ridiculous. Caleb turned toward her, his calm expression never wavering. What's ridiculous is the clause hidden in those papers. Adrian stood slowly, turning back toward the living room. Explain it, he said. Vanessa crossed her arms. There's nothing to explain. Caleb opened his folder again and placed the documents on the table. There is, he said evenly. You added a guardianship transfer agreement tied to a medical trust. Adrian frowned. What does that mean? Caleb looked directly at him. It means she wasn't abandoning Oliver. Adrian felt a flicker of relief, but it lasted less than a second. Caleb continued. She was sending him away. The words settled like ice in Adrian's veins. To a private facility overseas, Caleb said quietly. One that specializes in long-term care for disabled children. Adrian stared at Vanessa. You are going to ship our son to another country. Vanessa's patience snapped. Oh, please, she said sharply. Don't make it sound cruel. It's an elite medical center. They would handle his needs far better than we ever could. Adrian's voice dropped to a dangerous calm. You mean better than you could. Vanessa's eyes flashed. I didn't sign up for this life, Adrian. Her words spilled out now, years of frustration finally surfacing. I married a man with ambition, a future, a company worth millions. I didn't marry endless hospital visits, therapists, wheelchairs, and a child who will never live a normal life. The room fell silent. From the hallway, Oliver listened quietly, his small fingers gripping the wheels of his chair. Adrian turned slowly toward her. Say that again. Vanessa lifted her chin defiantly. He's not the life I wanted. The sentence hung in the air like a blade. Adrian walked past her without another word and returned to the hallway. Oliver quickly wiped his eyes, pretending he hadn't heard anything. Daddy. Adrian crouched beside him, his voice softer than ever. Do you remember when we planted that little maple tree in the park last spring? Oliver nodded. You said trees grow strong even if the wind pushes them. Adrian smiled faintly. That's right. Oliver tilted his head. Are we the tree? Adrian felt tears threaten to rise, but held them back. Yes, he whispered. We are. Then he gently turned Oliver's wheelchair toward his bedroom. Stay here for a minute, okay? I need to talk to Mommy. Oliver nodded slowly. As Adrian returned to the living room, Caleb was already gathering the documents. Vanessa tapped her heel impatiently. Well, she said, are we done with the emotional theater? Adrian looked at the papers. Then he looked at her. You're right about one thing. Vanessa smirked slightly. Finally. This life isn't the one you wanted. Her smile widened. So sign. Adrian picked up the pen. But instead of signing, he pushed the entire stack of papers back across the table. No. Vanessa blinked. What? I'm not signing anything tonight. Her voice sharpened instantly. You don't get to stall this. Caleb stepped forward calmly. Actually, he does. Vanessa glared at him. You think you're clever. No, Caleb replied. Just thorough. He slid another document across the table. Vanessa's expression shifted the moment she saw it. Adrian noticed immediately. What is it? Caleb answered quietly. An investigation. Vanessa laughed nervously. Investigation into what? Caleb folded his hands. The financial transfers you made over the last year. Adrian's brow furrowed. Transfers. Caleb nodded. To the same overseas facility you planned to send Oliver to. Vanessa's composure finally cracked. That's irrelevant. Not when the facility is under federal investigation for illegal medical trials. Caleb said calmly. Adrian felt the ground drop beneath him. What trials? Caleb's voice lowered. Experimental treatments on disabled children. The color drained from Vanessa's face. Adrian stared at her in disbelief. You were going to send our son there. Vanessa's voice trembled now. They said there was a chance he could walk. At what cost? Adrian demanded. She had no answer. For a long moment, the only sound in the room was the rain against the windows. Finally, Adrian spoke again, his voice steady and firm. You wanted everything except him. Vanessa said nothing. Adrian continued. But Oliver is everything. Then he looked at Caleb. File the custody motion tomorrow. Caleb nodded. It's already prepared. Vanessa sank into the chair slowly, her confidence dissolving. Adrian walked toward the hallway once more. Oliver looked up when he entered. Is it over? Adrian smiled gently. Yeah, buddy. Oliver studied his face again. Are we okay? Adrian placed a hand on his shoulder. We're more than okay. Oliver thought about that for a moment. Then he smiled, a small, hopeful smile that lit up his entire face. And Adrian realized something powerful in that quiet moment. The strongest families were not the ones without hardship. They were the ones who refused to abandon each other when life became difficult. If Oliver's courage touched your heart, take a moment to press like so this story can reach more people who believe every child deserves love. And tell me in the comments, do you believe Vanessa truly cared about Oliver at any point? Or was she always feelings out? If you believe Oliver is stronger than most adults, too odd in the comments. Gotta stories like this carry an important message. If you think more people should hear it, please share this video with someone who values family and compassion. Now I'm curious. What do you think Adrian should do next for Oliver's future? Let's talk about it in the comments. And finally, if you enjoy powerful emotional stories like this, don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you never miss the next story that reminds us what truly matters.